Welcome to you. My name's Dale and this is Dale's Addiction. Today I'm bringing you the tale of two intelligent women who have a lot of experience shopping overseas, internationally, on their credit cards, who have been scammed. So, the first story I'm going to tell you is my own personal story. A few months ago, I made a purchase online with La Marque. La Marque is a Canadian-based company, and I spent the best part of 1,500 Australian dollars on this fabulous feathered lilac dress. Now, this dress I had planned to wear to an occasion. I looked at the sizing chart and I decided to purchase an extra large. And according to the sizing chart, that's equivalent to an Australian size 20, which is in fact 3 sizes bigger than what I actually am. I thought, given it's coming all the way from Canada, that if I purchase a size 20, it will be too big, but I can have it tailored to fit me. And that's better than mucking around with a returns process. However, as a savvy shopper, I checked the international returns policy, which says free returns in Canada and the continental US. Returns are not free for international purchases. You will not be refunded your shipping costs. You will be charged a $15 restocking fee, and you will be responsible for the shipping costs to return the item and any customs and duties associated with us receiving the item. To which I agreed yes, and that's why I insured myself by purchasing a larger size. I received my item about a week and a half, 2 weeks later, and the courier was parked out front, and I knew it was my item because there were feathers from the dress hanging out of the actual box. And my first thought was, I can't believe that such a delicate piece has just been thrown in a box. I opened the box immediately and I filmed myself opening the box to make sure that everything that I was seeing was being documented. Luckily, there was no damage to the dress, but it certainly wasn't packaged in a way that I would consider luxurious. I pulled the dress out, I undid the dress, and I immediately went to try it on. And there was no way this dress was going anywhere near me. And I thought, that's so weird. So I checked the tag, and sure enough, it was the size that I ordered. I went back to the website, I checked the conversion and the measurements. It wasn't correct. At least it wasn't correct compared to actual Australian sizing. So you Canadian size 14 to 16 gals must be really, really tiny. Anyway, I then looked at the returns conditions and it said, send us an email at customercare@lamarque.com advising that you'd like to start the returns process, which I did. So my email read, I received my order today and unfortunately it is way too small. The measurements aren't consistent with the sizing guide. I'd like to return the item for a refund. As I'm in Australia, what is your process to proceed? I received a response later that evening, given the time difference. Hello Dale, as stated online, international orders can't be returned. I'm like, where does it say that? So I replied immediately and said, please advise where it says returns are not accepted. It says returns are not free. I'm happy to pay shipping for the return and I acknowledge that this shipping fee is non-refundable. I'd like to progress this further please, as this is inconsistent with the terms listed on your website from my understanding. I received a response. Hello Dale, international returns are not offered as shipping duties, taxes and fees back into Canada are too expensive for clients. It's not offered. Thank you for understanding. Best customer service. Then I respond with, can you please advise where it says on your website in the terms and conditions? Then I receive a response. The returns policy says no international returns possible. No sign off. I respond, I'm sorry, I've now asked 3 times if you can advise where it says on the website terms and conditions. As a customer, I obviously need to make informed decisions given the price of this piece. I was under the impression from your website that I can email you to make arrangements to return the item at my cost. I'd like to specifically see where on the returns policy on the website it says no international returns. If this matter is not resolved, I will use my social media platform to share my experience. This is not customer service. This is rude. Dale. Reply. Hello Dale, the online policy is very clear. We explained it as well. It's not offered nor is it an option. It is written near the products as well. Clients are responsible to read the policy. Best. Customer services. I return with the actual returns conditions, which I will put here on the screen, and say that it is not eligible for free returns. It says shipping costs are not refundable and a restocking fee of $15 applies. It does not say no returns. The bank asked for evidence, which I'll put on the screen, including a copy of the original sales receipt, invoice, work order, brochure or contract, a signed letter describing the difference between what you ordered and you received or what was wrong with the item, which I wrote, an independent assessment from a licensed expert written on their business letterhead. I did call the bank and ask would a tailor be suitable, and they suggested that I don't need to provide that information as yet because they'll ask for more information if they should need it. Details or proof of how I've tried to sort it out with the seller. Details or proof that you returned the item if applicable, and a copy of the courier receipt. So I wrote that letter back to the bank and I provided all of the information. About 10 days later, they said that they had not accepted my dispute and provided me with details of how I could escalate my claim, which I did. I escalated my claim, and then I was advised that I would need to give a further 10 days to the bank to investigate the dispute. After about 12 days passed, I got a phone call. And that phone call was not monitored for quality purposes, and so I was able to be a little bit more pragmatic during that phone call. What I discovered was, in my response to the bank, I had tried to position myself as a savvy shopper, someone who doesn't purchase irresponsibly, who doesn't go out of their way to make life difficult for vendors and merchants, and made an informed decision and knowingly accepted the terms and conditions of my purchase. However, the goods that were sent to me were not as described. And that was the main component of my case. Secondly, that they were not honouring their international returns policy. What I didn't know was that MasterCard have different evidentiary requirements around what they will provide a chargeback to the bank for. So I was providing evidence to the bank, not to MasterCard, but the bank was sending my evidence to MasterCard, and MasterCard don't care about quality issues, whether the size was incorrect, whether there were, all of the things that I'd basically put in my evidence dossier were not things that qualified under their criteria for a chargeback, and so they declined. Fortunately for me, which is something that I didn't know, fortunately for me, the bank actually provided me with a refund based on the goodwill that I'd been a great customer of the bank. Thank you, bank. However, the problem is if you are trying to, I guess the moral of the story for me, if you're trying to get a chargeback through using your credit card and you've purchased direct with a merchant, then you simply need to outline what the highest level breach has been in your transaction. So what conditions you accepted and what conditions the merchant promised, and then what was breached. And in my case, it was the fact that there was an international returns policy. It was set out on the website and they failed to honour that policy to me, their customer, who acknowledged that I accepted that policy. I shouldn't have gone into any of the information about the size and the goods not being what was promised and so on and so forth, because MasterCard don't care. So that was my lesson, and a really big one. And I had thought, well, maybe if I'd have purchased through PayPal, things might have been better. Well, as I mentioned in the beginning,
I have a friend who's had a similar experience, but because her claim hasn't been settled yet, I'm going to de-identify her.
Had purchased using her credit card through PayPal from an overseas consignment company that happens to be based far, far away from her. her bag was advertised to be in a certain condition, and when she received it, it was definitely not in that condition. There are a lot more marks and scuffing and things that couldn't really be fixed without quite an extensive trip to the spa. She contacted the merchant and complained about the condition of the bag and that it wasn't as described. The merchant said, "Oh yes, it was. Everything is as described." And there was a real disagreement around what was advertised and what was provided. And I have seen the photos of this bag, and it's definitely not what was provided. And so they agreed to a return. Now, because had purchased through PayPal and her credit card, she just went through the returns process with the vendor, thinking everything's going to be covered through the consumer protection clauses. The vendor asked that she pack the bag up and that she not declare the value on any insurance, because otherwise she would have to pay customs and duties on that bag, and that was something that she didn't want to do. And so she complied. She sent the bag off, and then tracking mysteriously stopped, and the bag was unidentified, floating around somewhere, and you'll get this in a second, for several weeks. And in that time, it was deemed lost, and so she lodged a dispute with PayPal and a secondary dispute with her bank, as it was clear that the bag had gone missing. Now, whilst those disputes were being investigated, the bag miraculously showed up at its destination. However, the bag was covered in mould. The box that the bag was in was completely dry. She had not filmed the process of packing the bag up before she sent it, and so couldn't guarantee that the condition of the bag when it was posted was as it was sent to her, because when the vendor opened the bag and filmed the mouldy condition of the bag, there was no way to say, "I can't provide evidence to the contrary that the bag wasn't in that condition when I sent it." Now, because the bag had been located, the vendor and her had agreed to split the difference and cut their losses 50-50 because of this, absolute conundrum they found themselves in. To do that, though, they needed to do it through PayPal, because that is the platform through which they had transacted. For PayPal to lodge a dispute, they needed the bank to say that they were no longer pursuing a chargeback. However, the bank is an online bank and wouldn't provide that documentation to PayPal. So now we've got the bank saying we're not going to provide you with a chargeback. We've got PayPal saying we will, but not until the bank has said that they are out of the process. And so now it's a period of weeks until she receives her 50% refund through PayPal, assuming that she can get all of those ducks lined up in a row. Now, when we were chatting last night and I said, if there were, the top things that you would want people to take away from your experience, what would they be? And again, I'll say, we are people that buy internationally a lot. She says, don't buy with a credit card through PayPal, and it's very complicated in terms of chargebacks if something goes wrong. 2, get detailed photos, full stop. So just ask for more, regardless of what the listing is. You have to be absolutely sure of what you're getting. It's coming from a long way away, and the purchase process is complicated enough without customs and duties and all of that jazz, which are extra costs and shipping. Ask for more photos and don't think you're being painful. 3, video the unboxing and the packing process to make sure that you have a record that justifies how you've dealt with the process. And 4, always insure your packages even when sellers ask you not to. So you've got that extra piece of protection. Now, you would think using PayPal, using a credit card with insurance, and that would be enough protection, but obviously it's not. And so she's now waiting until mid-January, hopefully to get 50% refund, which will be on a purchase of around 2,500 Australian dollars, 1,250 bucks lost. I, on the other hand, just through goodwill with my bank, thankfully, was able to get a full refund for the purchase price. And I still have the dress because Lamarck wouldn't correspond with me any further to return it. So I'm going to sell that dress now, and I don't need to make the money back that I paid for it because I've been compensated for that. But if you've got some warnings or words of advice, not necessarily stories because they take a long time in the comments, but if there are things that you've picked up from your experience that you could share with us in the community to prevent these kind of hardships, frustrations, and potential significant monetary losses, please share them in the comments below, because this is the first time it's happened to me and I could not believe it. Even when I was upfront in saying, I'm going to make a video about this if nobody calls me and talks to me, and they didn't care. They were super arrogant. So, yeah, keen to know what your thoughts are, especially your tips and tricks and things that you've learned. So please give this video a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. Share it with people that you think need to know this information and can learn something from it. And subscribe if you haven't already. I put out videos on Wednesdays and Sundays and sometimes some extra ones. So please come back for more. Ciao. Bye.